Jacob finds himself entangled in a web of secrets surrounding his teacher, Susan. Is Jacob's life about to take an extraordinary turn?
Me? Jacob looked confused as he pointed to himself. Susan nodded. The crowd gasped loudly, and murmurs spread across the classroom. The pretty teacher who caught every student's attention, and also the one who didn't give anyone any attention barring teaching her class, was acting out of the ordinary. Jacob being called out by her was shocking, and not only Jacob came in the limelight once again, he was getting shocked and envious looks from all the boys in the room. Susan nodded at Jacob without saying a word. She grabbed her lecture notes and walked out of the classroom. Jacob followed her, having no idea what on earth Susan had in mind for him. Walking through the hallways and passing the overbridge between the academic buildings, Jacob walked into Susan's office as a crowd of students looked at him with curiosity. Susan was a bit of a celebrity in the mechatronic engineering department and the university as a whole, owing not just to her beauty, but also the fact that she was single. Susan took out a key and opened the office door. Jacob smelled something refreshing as soon as the door opened. There were 6 or 7 pots of plants on the windowsill. The antique wooden furniture was far different from that provided by the university. It looked like Susan had bought them herself. The decoration of the entire office was elegant and graceful, making it seem like her own little world. Having her own office when most of the teachers had to share with each other showed that Susan's status here wasn't ordinary. All those carved chairs and shelves looked pricey. Susan's family seems to be well off, Jacob thought as he observed the office. Susan closed the door and placed her lecture notes on the table. She pulled out a rosewood chair and sat down gracefully. She looked at Jacob and asked, "Where are you from?" "Mechatronic engineering," Jacob answered. Jacob looked around the office and thought that he was probably the first student who was lucky enough to be here. "Don't try to avoid the topic," Susan stared at Jacob and said. Jacob was confused. He was a student of the mechatronic engineering department. Where else could he be from? Susan looked annoyed now as her otherwise pretty-looking face twisted into a nasty scowl. She took her slender hand and grabbed Jacob's wrist tightly. It didn't seem like she had that kind of strength, but Jacob knew he couldn't move his arm even if he tried. "As I expected, your element is water. Tell me, where do you belong? River, stream, lake, or ocean?" Susan moved closer to him now, and all Jacob could think of was how many guys would die of jealousy right now if they saw this. I... Jacob was too confused and distracted to answer. "If you can't answer me, I have enough reasons to kill you," Susan said with a shrewd expression, and her eyes made Jacob's body shiver with fear. Susan continued to glare at Jacob and minced her words in anger. "How can this be happening? How can a normal being like you give out the aura of a dragon? How did you learn the cultivation technique?" She moved away from Jacob and sat back into her chair. Jacob hesitated for a moment and said, "I learned it from Liam Davis." Susan frowned in surprise. "Oh, is that so? It is a bit weird that a normal human can mingle with the likes of a prominent dragon clan. How do you know Liam?" Jacob was tired of all the new information he had been receiving the past few days. Feeling overwhelmed, he threw his hands in the air in despair and said, "I'm not sure if I should be talking about this anymore. Who are you?" "I'm an inspector, and it seems that you don't know much anyway." Susan rubbed her head as if suppressing a headache. She waved at Jacob to leave, saying, "You can go now. I'll have a word with Liam." She made it look like she was in a higher position than Liam, despite him being the vice principal and her being a teacher. Jacob was totally puzzled as he got up to leave. He was about to go out the door when Susan said, "Though you're new, I still need to warn you that I won't hesitate to kill you if you reveal our secrets to the world." Phew. Jacob drew a long breath of relief after he shut the door to Susan's office. As soon as he reached his dorm, He was flooded with questions from the university boys who had gathered in the room. What did Susan ask you? Why was she looking for you? Did you go to her office? Don't try to keep anything from us, dude. Did you do anything that drew her attention? Jacob was surrounded by them, but he didn't part with any information as he didn't forget Susan's warning. Realizing they couldn't get anything from Jacob, the boys decided to turn to his roommates as they were his closest friends. However, Sam and the other two didn't know what Jacob had done to catch Susan's attention. The four of them were always together when they were at the university, but they didn't notice anything else Jacob did that would interest someone like her. As a consequence, Jacob going to Susan's office had become a mystery among the students. Jacob brought them a lot of gossip and surprises these days. Gradually, people started to think that Jacob was someone special. However, as the person involved, Jacob didn't join in the conversation with the others. He was wondering what they would think about him if they found out that he still had the vice principal's visiting card. It was late in the evening by the time the curious boys dispersed from Jacob's dorm room, leaving the four roommates to themselves. However, they were all way too excited to fall asleep. Especially Sam, who kept asking Jacob what was with him and Susan. Jacob could make an excuse to fool the others, but it was hard to lie to Sam and his other roommates. But he thought it was safer if he remained silent and did not give Susan a chance to kill him. All the visitors are gone, and we're like your brothers. Jacob, can you just tell us what Susan asked you for? Sam asked sincerely. The other two strained their ears, hoping Jacob would spill the beans. Please stop talking about it and get some rest. Jacob sighed and felt very helpless. That is so unlike you. You tell me everything. Sam was deeply disappointed. Dude, you have been so secretive lately, said another roommate. Jacob couldn't help it. He used to be able to talk about anything with his friends, but in this case, there was nothing he could do. But you do seem to have some luck with the ladies for sure, said the fourth roommate all of a sudden. The lights of the dorm were switched off, and the four guys were talking in the dark and weren't tired at all. Yeah, I think our class president, Kathy, is interested in you too, the roommate continued. How come? Asked Jacob. Finally, a topic he could participate in. She keeps turning around to look at you nowadays. Don't tell me you didn't notice that, Sam chimed in. Make your move if you like her. What's the point of hesitating? The fourth roommate insisted. Don't be silly. I think she's just concerned about a fellow classmate, said Jacob. Jacob felt a bit panicky. He really didn't care too much about these things anymore. He felt that he got involved in something he wasn't supposed to. Now he was unable to get away from it, and there would be danger waiting for him at any time. Class crushes were hardly something on Jacob's mind. Don't you like Lisa, the most popular girl in the school? Teased Sam. That is all you, all right. I never liked her, said Jacob. But she is indeed beautiful. Someone else in the room likes her too, doesn't he? Don't you talk about me, said the third roommate. You were the only one all over her, Sam. Yeah, Sam is the ladies' man, teased the fourth roommate. The boys continued to talk and laugh until the morning, which left Jacob no chance to go out and cultivate at midnight. But he enjoyed spending time with his friends. It seemed like it had been forever since he had a normal conversation, let alone a night of banter. The next day was Friday, and they were all pretty close to the weekend. However, the only topic on everyone's lips was Jacob and Susan. Even Kathy, who never talked in class, was quietly discussing with the girls around her from time to time. Jacob could tell that she was talking about Susan from the annoyed looks she gave him. The teacher couldn't concentrate on the subject at hand as the students continued to discuss the hot topic. Although he had warned them a few times, it didn't stop the murmurs. It will probably be over by this weekend. They're just too bored, I guess. Last time when an attractive guy from fourth year began flirting with Lisa, everyone was talking about that with great interest. However, they switched their interest to something else in 2 or 3 days. Spinning his pen, Jacob hoped in vain. There was a knock on the classroom door, and the teacher, who was already annoyed with the students making noise, opened the door angrily. He was ready to lash out on the student who had dared to come this late to the lecture, but he was shocked to find Vice Principal Liam Davis standing outside. "Sir Liam, please come in," the teacher said quietly and took half a step back involuntarily. Liam kept a straight face and walked in. He looked at the teacher and then at the students in the class before asking, "How can a class be so disruptive and loud?" Seeing the vice principal enter the class, the students stopped talking completely. No one ever expected him to visit the class, and unfortunately, the class was being unusually loud when he was walking by. Liam's eyes were sweeping over the students in the class. When he made eye contact with Jacob, Jacob couldn't help but shiver. He felt his body freeze up for a moment. "Get your class under control and teach it well." Liam left promptly with these words. The students looked at each other in despair, and no one dared to talk again. The teacher felt such a relief at that moment and nodded with satisfaction as he saw that all his students were finally quiet. He could now teach in peace. Jacob gave a sigh of relief as well. He had a feeling that Elder Liam had come here on purpose, but he was glad he left him alone. The lunch break came pretty quickly once the class was quiet. However, Jacob and his friends did not have another class that afternoon, which meant they were free to go home or stay at the university and chill. They all decided to head back to the dorm and play cards. As they walked from one academic building to another to get to their dorm, they passed by the gate and saw a limousine in the parking lot. They approached the car and started talking about it. "So there's an arrogant rich kid getting picked up by a car like that, huh?" said Sam in a condescending tone. They had heard about a handful of rich kids at the university who got picked up on weekends but it was the first time for them to see someone getting picked up by a luxury car like this one. It wasn't prom, it was just a weekend. Why a limousine? Not only the four of them, but all the other students who lived in the dormitories had never seen a car like this and were admiring it as well. Whoever walked by the gate slowed down either intentionally or unintentionally in order to see who was getting picked up by the car. "Is someone trying to show off by getting picked up in this kind of car?" Laying his arm on Jacob, Sam said disdainfully as they approached the car. "Yeah, obviously they're showing off," said Jacob. There was nothing wrong with maintaining a low profile, especially at a school or college. They turned around to go to their dorm when the car doors suddenly opened. Two tall men in black suits and a short, elderly man got out of the car. Seeing the old man, Jacob got bitterly disappointed because he had seen this elder at Sophie's father's office. He was Elder Frank, the old and disrespectful man Sophie hated so much that she wished she could tear him apart. "Jacob, Miss Sophie's family has invited you for a visit," the elder said with a twinkle of joy in his eyes.
What does Elder Frank's sudden arrival mean for Jacob, and how will his visit to Sophie's family change everything? Will Jacob be able to uncover the truth about his past and his connection to Sophie's family?
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.